Hi, I'm William, and this is Foil Driven. In this episode, let's talk about using a foil drive to assist in doing a powered shore runner. And a shore runner is much like a downwinder, which you're going to start from one location and you're going to move to another one. In this case, I like to come back to the same location. So for me, I do these shore runners on days that it's coming straight in, and that allows me to go either way. Usually, I'll pick one direction over the other. I choose to go. It's always going to be slightly favoring one direction over the other. So I like to go sort of upwind, if you will, for the first leg of it, and I like to run to about 60%. The reason I choose a shore runner over a typical downwinder is I think it combines all the best elements of downwinding, but I use it to more prone surf. So instead of just going straight downwind with the swell, I'm right there in the surf zone, and I'm bouncing from wave to wave and trying to maximize connection. So I think these are going to help you in your prone foiling. It's going to teach you to read the surf zone, teach you to judge which waves to connect to, and it's going to maximize your efficiency and your pumping and your gliding. So before the foil drive came along, shore runners were pretty much reserved for those people that had the skill set to enjoy these things. And that means people who could get up, chip in from a wave, and then stay up, foil around, then connect wave after wave after wave. And most people just didn't have that skill set. But along comes the foil drive, and now you can use the foil drive as sort of either a safety net. Once you get up, you can pump and connect, and if you find that you're in a section that just doesn't have any good connections, you can use that motor to put you way further out on the outside and then sort of refresh the ride, because you tend to get pushed forward the longer you go on these runs, and once in a while you have to get back further out, whether that's via a foil drive or just pumping. So when I use a foil drive with a shore runner, I'm using it to maximize the smallest foil that I can possibly use and still have a fun ride. And two, I like to downsize to a smaller board. The bigger boards are fun, but they're really necessary in downwinding when you don't have a foil drive. It's made to get you up quickly, whereas with the foil drive, you can use that power to put you onto foil, and then you can really maximize the enjoyment. I think most people enjoy the surf more than they do just a large unbreaking swell. So when doing a powered shore runner, I prefer to use the smallest board I can. And I've been using a 30-liter Axis pump recently. I use it with straps, and I typically match it for the conditions of the day for the foil. Here in the summertime in Florida, on say knee to thigh high surf, I typically use the 1201 because it still gives me a little bit of maneuverability. If I start to lose a little bit of height when I'm pumping around, it's pretty easy to climb back up to the top of the foil. It's pretty maneuverable, and it has a lot of speed and power and glide. So it's a good combo for all of those. If the waves start to get a little bit larger, then I might drop to a 1030 Spitfire. If it gets really intense, then I can drop to say a 1001 or a 900. And I weigh roughly, I want to say 185 pounds in US. I think that's roughly around 83 kilograms everywhere else. So like I've said, I use the 1201, which is typically, that's a pretty big foil for most things, especially for prone surfing. But sizing up just a little bit from what you usually ride will afford you a little bit more pump and glide, a little bit so that you don't have to use the motor as much. So I like to use the motor as little as possible on most days. Some days I feel lazy and I just motor from glide to glide. But if I want to go the furthest, I'm going to maximize that pump and glide, maximize the number of connections I'm making, and just slightly oversizing, maybe one or two sizes up from what you'd normally ride in the waves. This helps a lot to sort of carry you. And you don't need that much maneuverability unless you're really in higher, taller stuff. And then you don't have to worry about any much more pump and glide. You can use the waves more to power your run. So on most days, it's coming in from one angle or the other. It's usually not straight in. And so I typically try to go, say, what would be considered the upwind version of that if I'm doing a shore runner where I'm going out and back. And so I make sure I do the hard work first. And so I run about as far offshore as I can get on 60% battery. When I get to that point, then I flip around and I know that I'll probably have enough battery to make it all the way home unless weather conditions change dramatically. Now, why am I choosing a smaller board? The smaller board, I feel like it has less wind resistance. It's a lot easier to pump. It feels faster and more agile in the waves. And I really don't need all that board length. With a downwinder, you can jump on a larger board, even with a foil drive, and it gives you a little safety and security when you're a little bit offshore, so that you can paddle back in with a lot of ease. But if you're staying in the surf zone, there's no need for all that. So I can drop down to, say, a smallest board I would use, and that's about a 30 liter for myself. I can maximize the fun with it, and I don't necessarily have to worry about, say, getting up on foil because I'm using the foil drive or paddling back in. So that's kind of why I favor the shore runner when I can do them. Even when I'm doing a shore runner, if I see some fishermen on the shore, a lot of times I've got to go a little bit offshore to avoid their lines. And so most of my shore runners do combine both elements of the classic downwinder and a shore runner. So I might spend a little bit of time on the outsides, especially if I'm coming back and I notice that there's more current on the outside, a little bit more swell to ride. I'm going to maximize whatever it's going to be to give me the least amount of time on battery power and the most amount of time just riding the waves. So the last question is, why would you choose to do, say, a shore runner on a day when you could just surf the local spot? And I think it's easier to continue to connect waves if you're not connected to one spot. I think you can keep pushing down the coast, and it's easier. I think it teaches you to maximize your use of efficiency, whether it's picking the right glide angle on the waves, or it's picking the right waves, or it's maximizing how well you pump and how you pump. I think all these things come together more and make you a better prone foiler if you start putting them together for a shore runner. And in Florida, on those days in the summertime when it's only knee high to maybe a couple coming in to thigh to waist high, you really need something if you want to be out there to sort of spice things up a little bit, because it can be pretty boring riding for an hour and a half in really small waves. If you're pushing to connect every one of these waves, it just brings a little bit more excitement into what's usually, say, mundane. So why would I choose a downwinder over a shore runner? I choose the downwinder on days when the swell is parallel and coast and it's rather large, and I can just go on a straight line and enjoy myself the entire time, just bouncing from one pocket to the next, and I don't have to do a whole lot of pumping. I can just kind of glide the entire coastline. I can go much further on a single battery, and I'll just try to do a straight line distance. I think those are the days I'd choose a downwinder, and on days when it's just coming straight in, I can go either way. I'll choose a shore runner, start from one location, go out and come back. Either way, you can't go wrong. They're both really fun, and you can mix it up. You could do a shore runner with a larger board, and you can do a downwinder with a smaller board. Either way, it's just another way to sort of enjoy the equipment. So I guess the last thing I have to say is, before you go trying either a downwinder or a shore runner, it's best to be prepared, because anything can happen while you're out there in the course of, say, an hour or two. And if you get in a position where the winds switch 180 degrees and they're going against what the groundswell is, it can make for a really difficult run either direction. So it's always good to bring a cell phone with you and keep enough battery remaining so you can get to the shore without an issue. Other than that, it's good to go in. It's great if you have the option for a chase boat or some friends to go with you for safety. When I'm going offshore for a long time, I usually take my impact vest with me. So even better than a cell phone would be a VHF radio, especially in areas where you get pushed out to sea. It's good to go with several friends. That way, if anything happens to one person, the other people can go to get help. Make sure if you're going out there by yourself, you give someone a flight plan. Let them know where you're going, where you're leaving from, where you expect to land at, and the times you think you're going to be out there. That way, if you're out there a little too long, your friends know when to start to call for help. That's all I have. Until the next time, I'm William, and this has been Foil Driven.